What's the story, Morning Glory? What is the word, Hummingbird? Thank you so much for clicking on my channel and for joining me for another review of The Real Housewives of Orange County, Season 16, Episode 10, Edible Derangements. So we start off with Heather and her family. They're all out to eat, and it's her husband, and all of her children. And as she's sitting there looking around at the table at her beautiful kids, she's realizing that time is just flying by. And pretty soon, these kids are going to be out of the home, doing their own thing, living their own independent lives. And so these moments of these family dinners are going to be fewer and fewer. The twins are about to go to college. I think the youngest one is about to go into middle school. So time is going by really fast. And as they're sitting there eating, the conversation comes up about how the two girls who both came out as LGBT, how they both had really different experiences while coming out. Now, while they both have the support of their family, the way that other people took the news was a little bit different. With the older girl, when she first came out, she had the support from her family, of course, but then she also had the support from people online, I guess her friends, her classmates, and so on. While the younger one, she was teased at school. People called her derogatory names. She's been teased online. So her experience with the world outside of her home has been not as positive and not as welcoming as her older sisters. So Heather is really trying to be there for her daughter. And then there's also seems to be like, I guess it's just regular sibling stuff, but I guess the older one was picking on the younger one. I'm not sure exactly what was going on there. And Heather was trying to tell her younger daughter that, this is just how it is with siblings. You're going to have these times where you don't really get along, but, everything will work out, so on and so forth. So I'm not really sure what was happening there, but you would think that because they have very similar experiences coming out as LGBT, that they would not have any kind of conflict with each other, but evidently they do. So that was interesting. Moving on to Noella. So Noella and Emily, they're both getting their nails done, and they're talking about Shannon. Shannon's going to be hosting a luncheon, and she's invited all the ladies to her luncheon. And then, of course, the conversation very quickly turns to Noella. So Noella talks about how she has an upcoming mediation with her estranged husband. And she says that at the mediation, she had made a request that they come in from separate entrances and they leave from separate exits because she doesn't want to have anything to do with her husband. And this man is all over the place. He's in Puerto Rico. He's in Mykonos. He's all over the world. It's like Carmen Sandiego. Where the hell is Carmen Sandiego? And Emily asked Noella, well, is he even going to show up? And Noella was like, well, I'm not even sure. I don't even know. Okay, so you're making much ado about nothing. You don't even know if the man's going to show up, but you're making all these special requests about separate entrances and separate exits and so on and so forth. In her confessional, Emily says that, being a friend to Noella can be very exhausting because she demands a lot of attention and wants everything to be centered around her, but she's not willing to give any attention to anybody else. Exactly, because didn't we talk about this before? Noella is not here for friendships. She doesn't want to be friends with these women. She's using this as an opportunity to make money and to further her career and her endeavors in the entertainment industry, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, she's not going to ask you about your kids. She's not going to ask you about your husband, how your day went, because she doesn't care. She doesn't give a damn. This is the Noella show, in case you didn't know, in case you didn't get that memo. This is the Noella show, the real life of Noella Bergeron. Moving on to Shannon's event. So Dr. Jen and Heather, they're driving to Shannon's house together. And while they're driving there, Dr. Jen tells Heather that Ryan left the night before. And he evidently left. And I think she said he packed a suitcase. He left. And then he came back, and when he came back, he just started screaming at her. And Dr. Jen says that she doesn't really feel hurt, but she feels humiliated. And she doesn't like this feeling at all. And she doesn't want to experience this ever again. And she's really considering filing for divorce. Now, Heather, in her confessional, says, well, this is what marriage is. Marriage is a lot of ups and downs. You're going to have a lot of good days, a lot of bad days. You're going to have good years. You're going to have bad years. This is what marriage is. It's just... and you just have to weather the storm and you just have to push through it. So, and I think Heather also had told, I think Dr. Jen told Heather that when they get to Shannon's house, she didn't want to talk about her marital issues. I think she said that in the car. So when they get to Shannon's house, Heather presents Shannon with a gift, and it's a candy dish full of edibles. Who would have thought? So I guess people are noticing that Dr. Jen is not really her normal self, and people are noticing that she's looking upset, and you can tell that she's like trying to fight back her emotions or trying to fight back her tears. So Heather notices how uncomfortable Dr. Jen is, and so to kind of ease the situation, she brings up the subject of Dr. Jen's children. So she asks Dr. Jen, well, didn't your children start their first day at school? And Dr. Jen says yes. They really liked recess, and they really liked the cafeteria. Oh, and by the way, my husband left me. So she just kind of blurts that out of nowhere, and it took everybody by surprise. And they were like, everybody was like, what? What happened? So she says that he packed his bag and that he left the night before. And Heather was kind of surprised because she remembered Jen saying in the car that she didn't want to talk about her marital issues or something like that. So then she says that her husband left her. Everybody's shocked. And then Dr. Jen is asking for advice. So she's asking the women, you know, what would y'all do in my situation? Or what did y'all do to get through your marital issues? And so they're all giving her their all different opinions. They're suggesting therapy, writing a mission statement. Emily says that her and her husband wrote a mission statement of something or other, and that's when their marriage took a turn for the better. Now, Noella tells Jen that she's very, very sorry, and, you know, she kind of pats her on the arm, and she tells Jen, you know, well, you know, Ryan seemed really sweet when I met him at whatever event. So the camera kept on zooming in on Noella as everybody was giving Dr. Jen all of their marital advice and so on and so forth. And so all the attention was like centered around Dr. Jen. And so you can see the camera kind of like zooming in on Noella. And Noella looked like a child who was being ignored and was trying to figure out a way to get attention. Now, she doesn't like Dr. Jen at all, but she understands that, well, she can't let her issues with Dr. Jen cost her any camera time. So she walks up to Dr. Jen, and that's when she's like, oh, I'm really sorry about what's been going on with you. It's all fake, all BS. So then they all sit down for dinner. Emily says to Jen, you're willing to do whatever it takes, right, for your marriage. And then Noella butts in and says, well, did you have a prenup? So this whole dinner conversation, whenever people are trying to steer Dr. Jen towards, like, do you really want to, if you really want to be married, are you going to try to work it out? You're going to try therapy. You're going to try this. You're going to try that. So people are trying to give her advice or encourage her to stick it through and really try to fight for your marriage. Whereas Noella, every time she opened up her mouth, she was saying something that was more favored towards divorce. At one point, Noella said, well, you got to be careful because he's probably being counseled by someone. In other words, he's probably has already hired a divorce attorney behind your back and he's getting all kinds of advice. And Emily said, I think your situation is very different from her situation. Like we're kind of jumping the gun here, talking about divorce attorneys and all prenups and all this other stuff. And then Noella says, well, it happened to me. I mean, I'm living through it. This happened to me not even 6 weeks ago. I got served papers. And then Emily was like, we know, Noella, that's all you talk about. We know. And then Noella looked at Emily like, excuse me, do you have a problem? Like, what's wrong with you? And then Emily's like, I'm just so sick and tired of always talking about your divorce, which is true. Dr. Jen is experiencing something in real time. Her husband evidently left and came back or whatever. Her issues are fresh. Your issues, we've already dealt with them. We've talked about them ad nauseum. Your husband has already filed for divorce. Go sit down and be quiet and shut up while we are trying to talk to Dr. Jen. So everybody ends up leaving the table. One by one, they leave the table. Heather left first, and then Emily left, and then Shannon then left. I mean, everybody left. So all we have left now is Noella and Gina. Noella, if she cannot do nothing else right, she knows how to clear a table. So all the women who left, they're all gathered in the den area, and that's when they pull out the edibles, and the hilarity ensues. So they're all nibbling on these edibles. Shannon literally took like half of a nibble, and she was already on a rocket ship to Venus. She was gone. She was like so flipped out on cloud nine. It was so funny to watch Shannon. Anyways, at some point, they didn't show this in real time, but they showed this as a flashback in scenes that happen a little bit later, but I want to talk about it now. At some point at this dinner, Heather brought up that Gina has started her own skincare company. And so Gina was very excited to talk about it, and she pulled out her phone to show how the photo shoot went, because she had a photo shoot. So she pulled out her phone and showed all the girls, the pictures from the photo shoot. She's talking about her skincare line, and evidently Shannon was not as enthused as the other women. So the scenes that they showed of Shannon's face whenever Gina was talking about her skincare line, Shannon looked disinterested. She said, "Oh, congratulations, I'm so happy for you." And it sounded very fake and very forced. So later on, when Emily and Gina are meeting up with their kids for a play date, they talk about that. And so Gina says, "Yeah, I noticed that Shannon really wasn't, like all gung-ho for my new business venture. So she kind of was like sulking in the background over there." So Gina assumed that Shannon was just really jealous of her and doesn't want to see her succeed. I kind of took it as Shannon was probably just bored. Shannon is also like an attention getter. She likes for the attention to be around her a lot, because when she was going through her marital issues with David, that's all she wanted to talk about. So I didn't think that she was jealous of Gina. Why would Shannon be jealous of Gina? Number one, Shannon has multiple businesses herself. Shannon's settlement, I think, was pretty nice settlement from David. What was Gina's settlement from her husband? How much was that settlement? What did she get out of that? Is their divorce even final? I don't understand why they just automatically concluded that Shannon was jealous of Gina, because I didn't get that at all. I thought that Shannon was just bored talking about Gina, because Gina and Emily to Shannon are just, they're just supporting characters. They're not the main starring roles. They're just supporting characters. So whenever talk is about them, Shannon's not really interested. But they took it as her being jealous. So Heather is out gardening with her daughter Kat, and they talk about, the negativity that she's been experiencing from people online and I guess at school. And Heather is extremely supportive of her children. And she's like, you know what? Because I think that her daughter was telling her about her LGBT flag, her pride flag. She has a really big pride flag in her room. And I guess when she does her social media stuff, people had made some negative remarks about the flag. So she was thinking about taking the flag down. And Heather was like, "No, don't do that. If you want your big pride flag in your room, keep it up there. Don't worry about what the naysayers are saying. Don't worry about the negative comments. Just ignore them. Those people are stupid. You do you, because, you do what makes you happy. If you want to take it down, take it down. If you don't want to, then don't. Don't fall victim to, these negative Nancy's online." So she's extremely supportive of her children. And her daughter even acknowledged that and said, "You know what? I would not be as confident as I am if I didn't have your support, your love and support the way that I do." And I thought that was a really sweet moment. And I just love how Heather relates to her children, how supportive she is of her children. And Heather said in her confessional that it really breaks her heart that there are children out there who are coming out or going through whatever, and they don't have the support of their family. And she was like, I want all of them to come live with me, because I have a lot of love and a lot of support to give to anybody that needs it. So Heather has a really good heart when it comes to that. And I really do appreciate her in that sense. Moving on. So Dr. Jen, Emily, and Shannon are all out to dinner. And when they get there, the first thing that Jen orders is a very dirty martini and some fried food. Shannon, in her confessional, says, "Oh, I've been there. I've been there before." It has not been a good day for Dr. Jen if she's ordering dirty martinis and all this fried food. So when Dr. Jen's father passed away, her whole family fell apart. I remember her telling this story in the beginning of the season. Her dad was the nucleus of the family, and I think she's an only child. So when her father passed away, her and her mom just kind of drifted apart and really didn't have much to do with each other. So her own family, one of the reasons why she doesn't really want to go get a divorce is because her own family, her husband, her children, that's like her new family. And because, her original family kind of fell to the wayside when her father died, it's really important for her to keep this family together. Excuse me. So she also said that when she met Ryan, or when she was with Ryan, she was with him already, I think, when her father died, or she met him soon after. And so when her father died, obviously she was going through a really dark time. And Ryan's fun-loving, carefree nature really helped her get through that time in her life. But that fun-loving, carefree nature is not like a detriment to her marriage, because he can't take anything seriously. She can't have a serious conversation with him about anything because, he just doesn't go that deep. So she talks about that. And when Dr. Jen got home after Shannon's luncheon, she said that, because they asked her, so what happened after Shannon's luncheon when you went home? And she said that her husband was very sweet to her. They even fell asleep holding hands. The ups and downs of marriage. And so Emily says to Shannon, she says, whenever, like when you see how close Heather and Gina are becoming, how Heather mentioned her business line, her skincare line, and then Heather invited Gina to go to New York with her, and you see all of that, does that make you jealous of their relationship? And Shannon says no. She says, I have my own relationship with Heather, and I'm too exhausted to be traveling anywhere right now. I got too much going on to be going to New York. And so then Emily talks about how Gina assumed Shannon was jealous when everybody was talking about Gina's skincare line at Shannon's luncheon. And Shannon was like, no, when did I appear jealous? And so, like I said, I think Shannon was probably bored and not really jealous. So then Shannon says that she's got multiple businesses and that she also has her own skincare line, and more power to Gina if that's what she wants to do. And Emily's like, well, not so much jealous of her and the business, but more so jealous of how close Gina and Heather have become. Does that bother you? And then Shannon said, no, it doesn't bother me. For the millionth time, I'm not bothered by how close Heather and Gina are becoming. So then in her confessional, Shannon says that Emily always tries to stir the pot when I sit down with her. And, when I try to have a conversation with her, she's always trying to get real messy. And so Shannon's like, I'm too booked and busy to be worried about what's going on with Gina and Heather. Now, the only thing that I can say, I don't see why Shannon would be jealous of Gina and Heather, because Shannon and Heather are not that close. In fact, they were like borderline enemies when this season began. So I don't think that Shannon is really missing out on anything if she's not that close to Heather, or if Heather is busy forming other friendships with other people. I don't think Shannon really cares, because Heather and Shannon are not like, it's not like Heather and Vicky. It's not like Shannon and Vicky or Shannon and Tamara. This is completely different. They were like arch enemies in that previous season. So why would Shannon feel like she was like missing out on something because Heather's running off to New York with Gina? Who cares about that? So Emily is trying to stir the pot. She's trying to be the bone carrier. Every franchise of Real Housewives has a bone carrier. So this one is going to be Emily. And yeah, do I have any other thoughts about anything else? I'm sick of Noella and Dr. Jen. Figure it out. Go to therapy. Do what you got to do. So I realized that the children that she has with Ryan, those are the children they have together. I didn't know if she came into the marriage with children or he came into the marriage with children, but those are the children that they have together. So yeah, do what you got to do, Dr. Jen, for your marriage. As long as you're not being physically, emotionally, or mentally abused, do what you got to do. And that is it. Thank you so much for joining me. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will definitely talk to you later. Bye.